Hello and welcome everybody. Write on writers, read on readers. I am your host today, SD Houston, writing under the pen name of S. Shannon. I'm Shannon, writing under the pen name of SD Houston. And I just found out not too long ago that I would be here with you guys today and hosting Adrian's show because his kiddo ended up in the emergency room. Everything is good, but if you want to send him well wishes, you can do that. But today we are here because we are going to be talking about the next TUBER book club, which it feels like it was a long time ago that we picked this out. We did have a lot happen in between. And this was actually the first time that a book I suggested got picked, and I've been here since like the beginning. So I was kind of, happy that I got one. And it's actually called The One That Got Away by Emma Bennet, which you guys saw the introduction there. And this is a show, the TUBER Book Club, is where we are reading and reviewing books, and we discuss our review of those books by author tubers who are found here on YouTube. And I'm going to go ahead and bring out our other panelists that have read the book today. So we'll start with Bethany, and I'll give you full screen.
Hello, my name is Bethany Vota. Oh my goodness, of course there's a truck going by. I'll go quick. I write short stories and thrillers, and I'm really excited about it. And there's a garbage truck right out here, so I'll let Ben go.
And Ben.
Hey everyone, I am Ben Pick, and every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I give questionable writing advice through writing metaphors on YouTube as Running to Write. And let's see, I also do scripting the book with Neither Vixen or Fiction, and the self-publishing tips and tricks with SD Houston, who is no longer on screen, so I'm pointing at nothing. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I didn't quite explain myself. I thought the intro was going to be a little bit longer, so I was reviewing my notes, and I didn't get hardly a line in. I thought, wait, there's no music. I think it's done. So, yes, I am SD Houston, and I do have a YouTube channel under SD Houston. I do the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast with Ben Pick and Morgan Lee, and we actually have an episode that's coming out today. It's our first self-publishing tip or trick of the week. They're just short little episodes. I think this one's like 6 minutes long. So, yeah, looking forward to that. I am also part of the AuthorTube Writing Conference team, which we're gearing up for our next year. And that's underway already. We already have a few special guest speakers. You can see the introduction video or the video that's talking about this next year on my channel. But we have Brian Cohen, The Life of a Writer. Stephanie Newell is also going to be one of our special guest speakers. And I feel like there's a lot more that I'm doing, but I don't remember what it is. I'm doing TUBER Book Club right now. So, all right. I think that the next thing we typically do, right, is we say hello to everybody. Let's do that. And then maybe, huh?
I was just going to say, I have all my notes on my Kindle, so it's going to be kind of weird to sort of scroll through and go back and forth and talk. I did a bad job of compiling everything together in a way that's easy to read.
I'm the same way. I have it on my phone because I can't find my Kindle.
There is the link for The One That Got Away. If you guys have any questions or anything, I don't know why you guys would have questions for us, but I always think that if you have a question, put a Q in front of it, but I don't think you have questions for us. So, hello, Jennifer. How are you doing? RC Scott, nice to see you. Felicia, hello. Of course, Bethany said hello. And I feel like I missed somebody. Nope, I didn't miss anybody. And then Emma, thanks for taking over. Yeah, I feel like kind of out of my element for the moment because I don't know, but we got this. And to get well soon, little dude. Yes, thank you. Lots of hellos, Bethany and Ben from Felicia. I have another friend who's launching a book today. Completely forgot. Oh, I think we're losing her. Shannon complaining that it was over awfully quickly. I don't even know what I said that to.
The intro, I think, is what he's talking about.
Oh, that's right. It was really quick. Not very romantic. Probably, no, I guess not, huh? Hi, Aphrodite. How are you doing? It's nice to see you. And to Richard. No, you said hello. Emma saying hello to Richard. It's not Richard talking. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's give our general thoughts about the book. What did you guys think about it?
I thought it was cute. Like, it was the perfect palate cleanser for my reading life. I was like, this is fun, fast-paced, and just cute. And I knew I was going to get like a sweet, happy ending. I think Emma has a really great gift for like dialogue and internal thought. I think that I really got to connect with our main character. It did feel a little tropey, but also like that's kind of the point, especially with romance. So I think Shannon and I were talking earlier about how like this is a book where it's like perfect to use as an example for how to write to market. So overall, cute, fast-paced, not my usual genre, but I enjoyed it.
And Ben, what did you think?
Cool. Yeah, overall, I liked it. I am not one for the romance genre. I typically stray in different areas, but this was fun. And I don't know. I don't know. When we bring Emma on here, I definitely do want to ask her because this felt a little wish fulfillment because we started off with like dreary England and you have this woman who is, not necessarily that happy with her life. And then she goes off to Spain and she has this crazy, not crazy adventure, but she is definitely treated much better in Spain. The weather alone is just beautiful. I don't think there's a cloudy moment once she's in Spain. And yeah, I mean, there's some good back and forth. Overall, I like the story.
All right. And so I did not pick these out, by the way. It says Ben picked me up. Bethany Votassem. This is from Adrian. And then SC Houston, we have no problem. I'm assuming that comes from Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
So my thoughts, it was a very quick, light read. I think that the way Bethany said that was, as a palate cleanser was probably is a really good way of putting it. Because I mean, if you're looking for something that's a quick read that is really enjoyable, sit down and and read this. I like to ask. I know we go chapter by chapter, but I found several different tropes in this, and yeah, you said it was kind of tropey. Romance is known for being tropey. I mean, it's what it is, right? If you want to sell your book, you got to have some tropes in there. I was having fun picking out some of them, and so of course, I think the title kind of gives it away. The one that got away, that gives away one trope, which is a second chance romance. Did you guys catch what the first name of the book was before it was rebranded?
Mm-mm.
His Secret Daughter, which is another trope.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah,
that's fun. Well, and I think sometimes people think that tropes are a bad thing or like have a negative connotation with it, and it's like, no, I actively search out certain books by the tropes that they have, and that's one way that I filter books. So I just want people listening, like when we are referencing different tropes or it's tropey, like that's not a bad thing. There's certain tropes that I love, certain tropes that I do, but in the end, like tropes are just like a way that we can categorize things.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's really important for readers. And like she had so many tropes in there, and then reading her blurb and then like the title, like you said, it like highlights certain tropes. And so it's a book marketed really well.
Yes. And we had talked about that too. And I had remembered, or I was thinking that as I first got into this book and I started reading it, I was like, wow, this like hits the market for what it's supposed to do. So I could see why it sold. There were other tropes throughout the book. I don't know if we want to try and pick them out now. I think it was kind of interesting to try and pick out all the different tropes, but can you think of any?
Yeah, there's one in particular I didn't quite like. It's I can describe the scenario, and I'll dive further into this when I go into the character analysis. But it's overhearing a conversation and not understanding what it is, and then just completely changing your life because of it. Like that, I had a lot of problems with.
Miscommunication trope.
Yeah. Well, so no. So there's I mean, it is a miscommunication trope, but there's a lot of other miscommunication tropes in here, which I didn't like. I understood given the scenario, but that first one was kind of rough for me.
Yeah. There's also I don't read like a lot of billionaire romances or things like that, but there's definitely some type of vibe with that because he's got money and he's using his money to influence the situation and bring her into his orbit and sphere and stuff like that. Which is kind of what you would get from, like I said, I don't read a lot. I've read a couple, but I don't know exactly. I'm not as familiar with that trope. And like, if there's like specific things they're supposed to happen, like, are they actually supposed to be a billionaire? I don't know. We don't know if he's a billionaire. I just know he has money. So, yeah, but yeah, I had that too. So, but, Adrian made an appearance. I could have used a couple more peppers in the spice level. I knew there was no peppers here.
Yeah.
But y'all, I just finished my novella today for my series and it's spicy. So I don't know if any of y'all have, if you guys support the Kickstarter, but if you did, it will be out on Saturday. I have it with a beta reader right now. So But if not, you can still get it on Indiegogo for $1. So
Nice.
it's the third sex scene I've ever written. But well, you've never invited me to your stream, so say let other people use the name.
The shots fired.
Yeah, shots fired. Yeah, invitation is the highest form of flattery.
And that's the thing, is that Emma doesn't usually write spicy romance. Like, she writes a lot of romance stories, but they usually have a low level spice, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I know that she writes is like that, but she likes to read the spice. So,
and I think that's great because there's like different levels for everybody and their preferences and whatnot. But it just like goes to show, like, if you have like interesting characters, a great setting. Like, I love how Ben brought up the setting, because I was telling Shannon, I'm like, it just made me want to hop on a plane and go to Spain and just have my own little whimsical adventure in some old manor somewhere. Like, that just sounds great. Like, it really felt like I was there. And like, that is why we read, is to escape whatever way we want to.
And when they were talking about Barcelona, I'm like, yes, they're going to go to La Rambla. Like, I know, a couple of the places they were referring to and some of the history there too. So it was fun to see or read in a book.
So I would say that too, the whole idea that there's a getaway, that is, I don't know what the original book cover had on it, but I feel that this all just works well together, because you have a feeling of, going someplace different. You got the airplane, right? The airplane's going somewhere else. You have got away. So which could literally be like, someone got away by physically leaving, or got away mentally, emotionally. And it kind of covers all of that. So I really like this. I don't know what the original one had, or what the title, His Secret Daughter. It probably worked well, but I do like how it all kind of works together. It brings you into that. It puts you in that mind frame on a psychological level that you may not be aware of.
There's multiple meanings to the title. Yeah. And after you read it, you're like, oh, that was clever. Like, that was cute. Yeah.
All right. Trope is just a description. All books fall under a trope. Just a matter of which ones you like or gravitate toward. Yeah, I even heard that with like literary fiction. They have tropes, but I don't know what they are. So, get it? Love spacey. Giggity. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. I think we've talked about our thoughts. Spoilers be after this. So if you want to read it, you might want to hold off on the rest of the show. So we'll start with chapter 1. What were your thoughts? Or you want me to say my thoughts first this time, maybe? Yeah. So sure, I loved how it got into the story almost like right away. I mean, the first paragraph, I was like, okay, not too bad. And second paragraph, okay, I'm ready to get a little bit deeper. And then it just threw you full force into it. I think at that point, it was just like, you got a woman walking with a daughter. Oh, wait, there's a group of people coming, and one is a man, and she knows his voice, and he looks at her and looks at her daughter, and she's like, I gotta get away, and she runs. So it's like, I thought it was a really good opening altogether. So what were you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, very similar. I was like, because sometimes with like romance, especially ones that, fluffy isn't the right word, but books that aren't as dark or intense, they can over-describe to kind of beef up the story and content a little bit. So I was like, okay, we're going to get this woman's backstory. I knew it was a second chance romance, but I was like, we're going to get this woman's backstory for a chapter or two. We're going to see how her life is normal. And then we'll get probably end of chapter 2, maybe chapter 3, the like reintroduction of this thing. No, we were like 3 pages in, and I loved that. I was like, okay, it's full speed ahead. It like sucked me in right away. And we knew like right off the bat, like so much about this woman, like her job, kind of her lifestyle. Like, she's a hardworking single mom. And then all of a sudden we see, oh, here's the father of her child who clearly doesn't know he has a child. And it's like, you have all of these amazing unanswered questions that push you into reading even more. So no complaints with the intro at all on my end.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I actually thought, I thought a little bit differently, where based on how we were introduced to the baby daddy, I thought like he was abusive, because she seemed utterly terrified when she saw him, or she's like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here. And so I thought like she kind of escaped from a previous relationship when I read that. I mean, that was the vibe that I got, which turns out to really not be the case. She's just really, really embarrassed and unsure of what she wants. But yeah, I mean, I really like being thrown into the deep end for the story.
I think part of that too could come with the expectations of knowing the genre. Like me going into it knowing that she was writing a sweet, clean romance, I knew that that probably was not going to be an element. So what I took away, that the two things I really liked, well, it's the same thing, but you really get an idea of both characters. And so even like that last sentence of that first paragraph, I underlined it where he says she could almost imagine she wasn't actually in the center of London because of the trees and stuff. And I thought, oh, this is good character insight. She doesn't really like being in London. I don't know why, other than it might have something to do with the scenery. And of course, when she goes to Spain and she falls in love there with the country and everything, you know, the scenery and all that, you know, and then she goes back to London and she's like, oh, it's dreary again. It kind of brings it full circle. So you kind of got insight. I didn't exactly know how that was going to play in, but yeah. And then the fact that, you know, she mentions, okay, she thought, of course, that Sergio's the MMC, the main male character. She knew Sergio would probably find her after he saw her. She knew that he'd probably figure out where she lived. She knew that he'd probably come himself to her place. But she thought it'd all take a little bit longer than the hour it took for him to do it. And so that told me something about his character too. And I think that the character stayed really consistent through the rest of the book from those things that were put into the first chapter. So, all right. We have anything else that we want to say about chapter 1? Okay. Chapter 2. I didn't make a whole lot of notes, guys. I know we talked about this already, and it looks like my chapter 2, I didn't write any notes. But I would say that this next chapter and probably into the next one is all about Sergio trying to insert himself into, and I say insert, it sounds like, you know, that he's trying to slot himself, but it's not. It's more like he has like this shelf and he's trying to put them in the shelf of his life. You know, he kind of wants to take over, but it's all about him trying to get to know his daughter. But he's a very, you know, go get it. I see my daughter. I don't know her. I don't know who she is. She's going to be in my life. And you're going to meet me at the zoo on Wednesday. It doesn't matter if you've got a job or not. You're going to meet me. He doesn't say that. He just says, meet me at the zoo on Wednesday. And it happens. So what are you guys' thoughts?
That like surprised me a little bit because I mean, like, I'm not a mom, but like just thinking of, yes, you have this history with this person. And in a sense, we could kind of get, Iris is the main character. I don't know if we said that. We could kind of get a sense of not her guilt of keeping this a secret, but like knowing that it might not have been the best idea, but it was the best idea at the time. And so she's kind of got this attitude of like, it was bound to happen. I'm reaping what I've sown. But at the same time, like I have nephews and stuff. And if their routines are like thrown off and like some, for all intents and purposes, stranger that you haven't seen in a long time is demanding your time, like I don't know, I might have like pushed back a little bit. But Iris, again, I think her going to the zoo and acquiescing to his demand of like, meet me at the zoo, and her like being like, this is really inconvenient, but okay, you kind of get a sense that it's because she feels guilty. But at the same time, I'm like, where's that mom instinct? Like, where's that mama bear? I don't know.
I saw the mom instinct come in though, because, and she recognized he's got money. He has she didn't like his lawyer. Like, she knew who his lawyer was. I think she recognized that if she didn't play nice, she could lose her daughter.
That's very true. Yes. Yeah. That was definitely addressed, especially later in the chapter as well. Yeah. About how she's like trying to keep the peace because she knows she would not be able to afford it.
And he threatened her with that too.
That's very true. I did forget about that. Okay. That makes more sense now.
Yeah. So when we're starting to get a feel for who Iris is, and I could not put my thumb on like where she was in terms of age. So she seemed like a capable 30-something, and yet she also has the maturity of like an early 20-something. So she kind of goes back and forth in my head of like, how old is she? And that shouldn't matter, but it kind of does, because if she's, got intelligence, she should be acting a lot more mature than she is. And let me see here. Honestly, so I have a note here about how I don't know if British laws are the same as they are in the United States, but my understanding is that fathers usually have limited rights, even in a situation like this. Like, she would basically, no matter how good his lawyer is, she is a capable adult. She has a job. And so from a legal standpoint, she basically can make a lot of the decisions for their child's future without the father being involved. Like I said, I don't
Money
know.
does things. I mean, I don't know. There's just so
Yeah,
much that happens when people have money that I know as a mom myself, I would not want to take that risk. I
right.
would try to keep the peace at first. I would try to do everything I could to. And she does feel like, okay, he knows he has a daughter. He should know his daughter. You know, she does get to that point where she realizes that he should know her.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, so that's my only thoughts for
but I
money is
think
a
I agree with
superpower. Thanks, Adrian.
I do agree with the age thing. I wasn't really sure either what her age was, and it did feel like it was kind of went back and forth. But I was a young mom. I was 21 when I had my son, and so in some respects, I was like, I felt like I was so much more mature than everybody else that was my peer group. But then in other ways, I still wanted to be able to have fun and do 21-year-old things, and
So it's not even like that she wants to go out and have fun. She
yeah,
exclusively
true.
doesn't do that.
Yeah,
But
right. She doesn't. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's just turns of phrase that feel like she's. I have a couple like notes highlighted in there of like, wow, that doesn't sound like something a 30-year-old would say. But then at the same time, I don't know, she kind of goes back and forth in terms of maturity and intelligence between like a good 10-year gap.
Yeah. I just meant to make the connection that in some ways that she could act younger or more of her age, not in the same way that I did, but could have those moments.
Right.
I think I kind of determined that she was probably in her 20s.
Late 20s. I think it did say at some point that she was like
Something.
28.
Well, she said that Sergio was older than her and he was in his early 30s or something like that. I think that's what I read somewhere that's what I think I remembered, but I don't know. I really don't remember, but I think I just kind of settled in my mind that she was in her 20s.
Right.
Let me be clear. I was angry with her. I don't dislike her as a character. I think she's brilliantly written, but her decisions made me slap. Yeah, I kind of felt that sometimes too. A single conversation could have prevented this entire book. Yeah, that's the whole miscommunication trope, right? Girl needs relationship skills. I think we all do. we don't start off with those things, and then you throw a baby in there, and it makes it harder. I think. I mean, some people are very good at relationships, but I would say that's probably not the majority of people when they in their 20s. So.
Yeah, I will say though, like with the miscommunication and like the character doing things that like make you roll your eyes, like she is young. Again, with what Ben said, like not really sure how young, but I think she comes across as a little bit more juvenile than her actual age. And I don't read a ton of romance, so I can't really speak to like comparisons to the other genres. But my sister reads a lot of romance, and she just says that sometimes like it's fun to read about the mess of other people. And I'm like, I get that. Like you want the drama, but not like real life drama, like for sure. And she's like, people are dumb. We all do dumb things. And if anything else, it takes you back to those teenage years where you were like really bad at relationships because you're a teenager and you don't know anything. And so you can kind of connect in certain ways. It just kind of maybe does come across differently with a 20-year-old, 20-plus-year-old type thing. So I don't want to say like,
sorry, Ben.
No,
it's
you're
like
fine.
not uncommon. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think it fits within the genre for what I know of the genre, but I don't know a ton. But yes, there were many times where it was like, man, you guys just one therapy session, everything would be fine.
Well, and that's the thing is that when I read books like this or when I read stories like this, when it takes place in the real world, I basically normalize to how old the characters are or who they are based on the people I knew in my own life. So I'm like, oh, well, when I was 27, like this is how I would have acted. When I was 22, this is how I would have acted. And then when I start being like, well, even when I was 16, I wouldn't act quite like this. And then when I start going like back earlier and earlier and earlier, I'm like, well, so this 20-something-year-old person has the maturity and intelligence of a teenager essentially. So it's, I don't know, there's kind of a clash there.
I guess what I always try to, what I tell myself in my head is what my husband always says to me. He was like, not everybody thinks like you.
Right. No, I agree. But it's not just me. It's like my friends.
I told myself that while reading this because I was like, why is she making this decision? I'm like,
right.
Okay, I wouldn't make that decision. So,
yeah, exactly.
She's not me. So, and I know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know plenty of people who make tons of mistakes. In fact, some of the most brilliant people I know of are also idiots. But the smartest guy I know got expelled from college. But it's a long story. But it's the same sort of thing of like, yes, brilliant people can do really stupid things. But at the same time, like there's I guess just something missing, or it's like I can see. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
I would say let's go ahead and move on, because we are kind of bashing her a little bit, but I think he did a lot wrong too, especially, toward the middle and the end of some of the things that he did. So I'd like to get to that, so we're not just bashing on her, but
true.
I do feel like I sympathize more with him. And I even wrote on here in one chapter, I was going to ask you guys, what did you think? Who do you think was right in this situation? But when we get there, we could, I don't remember where it was at, but all right. Chapter 3. So the previous chapter does end with the daughter got sick. Iris picked up the sickness. The daughter got better, but now Iris is really sick. And right. Climbed out of bed, went downstairs, waking up. She felt better. Yeah. And he basically took care of the Paola. I say Paolo because I had a really good friend that was Paolo, and my son's middle name is Paul from him. So, but so I always think of Paolo. Paola. Can't say it. Paolo doggy. So Sergio took care of his daughter, and that's where we kind of left off with Iris having gotten scared because she thought that Sergio kidnapped the daughter because they took off, right? Panic at her one question. We're on chapter 3, trying our best not to think clearly. Yeah. So she ends with waking up from being sick after Sergio said he'd helped with the daughter, but Sergio left her flat with the daughter. And so when she wakes up and her daughter's not there and Sergio's not there, she's thinking that he kidnapped the daughter. And that's where chapter 3 picks up. And this one's a shorter chapter. Again, no notes. I see notes though for the next one. This is when he's saying that they're going to, he's taking his daughter to Spain, and he's taking both of them to Spain. And this is when you first start realizing how much he kind of manipulates everything. Like, it's going to be for him, oh, I've got this daughter. She's gonna be part of my life, and you don't have to come, but you're welcome to come, basically. And so what are you guys' thoughts about this one?
I think we start to see a lot of the characters and who they are. And I think the whole thing is just so inconvenient for both of them that they're just trying to get through the situation without losing contact of Paula. And so with Sergio, he's like, I'm this big businessman. I can't stop my life. I have to continue on and go to Spain and finish these job things. And Iris is like, I don't want to lose my daughter. I guess I'll go along with this. It's kind of weird, but also what choice does she have in the grand scheme of things? And then we see Sergio wanting to be active and involved, but just really being bad at it and inconvenient. And Iris naturally assuming the worst. I think that's the mom instinct, but also what's your long-term game here? What's going on type thing. So I think a lot happened in this chapter, but more we got the subtleties of their characters and who they are.
And I just did see it when I was going through it again. He did buy medications for her while she was sick that she didn't see until later. But yeah, that was interesting.
And I only have 2 notes for chapter 3. So one of them, she's kind of wondering, will he stay the night? Do I want him to stay the night? And she's trying to figure it out. And my whole thought is, well, based on what little she knows, I'm there's already enough evidence to know that Sergio loves her. And this is all just one giant misunderstanding. And then later on, she's trying to figure out what Sergio's doing. And, she's claiming that she has a daughter to protect. So that's why she's acting the way she is. And my thought was that Iris is acting selfishly because clearly Sergio is protective of Paola as well. So just from the one interaction at the zoo, I assumed that he wouldn't just kidnap Paola, out of the blue. And so that sort of led me down a different path. So that's on my notes for chapter 3.
One thing I did like in here was, and I already passed it up. I had it and then I passed it up. When, she was she says, I'm not scared of you. And he says, I'm not trying to make you scared of me. And he says, there's no question about you being able to see Paula, but you can't seriously expect us to travel to another country. And he says, I do expect it. and I'll pay for all your expenses. And she says, money is not the issue. And this is something that she's like trying to like, get him to understand. The whole book is like, I don't care about the money. I don't care about any of this. This is a life. This is my life. And you're telling me what I'm going to be doing with it. Or you're going to take my daughter away. And she thought, the last thing is no, she thought to herself, you truly don't see. So
on the other hand, though, what does Iris actually have to live for? Like, she's living for her daughter, of course, but she doesn't have a good job. She doesn't have she's behind her rent on her apartment. She doesn't have any friends. Like, if nothing else, just look at it as a vacation for however long it lasts.
I would have.
All right. We're about the rational, logical ones.
Right.
I'm with you. And I think that we get like a little sense of pride from Iris. Like, she doesn't want to be beholden to anyone. But at the same time, I'm like, get out of dreary London and go soak up some sunshine, girl.
Yep. All right, chapter 4. I wrote a little bit in here, a few notes. And I don't even remember what I wrote. I wrote OMG in one section. Okay, so in chapter 4, shoot, I'm trying to figure out what this chapter is. You guys want to go ahead and say your notes first, and I'll figure out what my notes mean?
Sure. So first of all, we have her direct quote of, this is Iris saying, I won't let Sergio buy me clothes. That would be completely ridiculous. And my note is, I guarantee this will happen in a few chapters. And sure enough, spoiler alert, it does. He buys her a whole bunch of clothes and a whole bunch of nice things. Let's see here. What else is there? There is... Sergio is definitely talking down to Iris and like telling her kind of how to behave and like what needs to be done, which admittedly and is 100% a dick move. But when I was reading this, I'm like, Sergio is treating Iris like you would an unruly child if you're not necessarily the great parent. But it works. I mean, yeah. Some people, you just need this is why I'm not a parent, by the way. But some people just need telling somebody the right thing to do is not always going to be received the best way, but you can vary from like an external point of view. You can say like, hey, look, if you just did X, Y, Z, like all of your problems will be solved. And Sergio definitely just doesn't do that the best way. I have a note of the Gothic Quarter because they're walking through Barcelona. The Gothic Quarter is lovely. And, so the entire time she's in Spain, she's in Barcelona, and she's trying to provide for her family. But my note is, home is where you make it. So it sounds like she should be trying to make her home with her daughter wherever they are, as opposed to in her one-bedroom apartment, because it's clear that with everything that Sergio is providing, sure, it's definitely not ideal to have somebody else be providing for you and you sort of feeling, I don't know, like you're taking a backseat to parenting. But at the same time, she didn't have much to offer her daughter, and now there's like this whole world that's being expanded out for Paola.
Yeah, I think I kind of went the other way on my thinking with this one. Yeah, he is offering her a whole lot, and it'd be something if he was like, hey, I would like to provide this for you. I see that maybe you're not in the best situation. But instead, he's basically telling her, you're going to come or you're going to stay behind, and I'm taking your daughter with me. Right. And if you've been independent, especially if you're a single parent, you're very, very independent. You don't really, if you don't have family or friends to lean on, then you're doing everything. You're making all the choices yourself. And all of a sudden, all those choices are taken away. And it seems like that would be a load off. But at the same time, no, you've been making all the choices. You've been making all, and if you feel that you've done a good job, which, this is presented as if she's doing a good job, even if she's not, wealthy, she's taking care of her daughter, and her daughter's well adjusted. So I really did see some of her point of view in this. I put in here, I put, I'm expecting a blow up because, first of all, right. She says, well, I have a job. Why do you expect I don't have a job? I can't just pick up and go. And we find out that she doesn't have to be living in London to do her job. She could do a commute. But she doesn't tell him that. She's just upset because he's taking control of her life and telling her what's going to happen. And the very next day, he calls her, says, I talked to your boss, you can commute. And I wrote in here, that's what I wrote OMG for. Like, really, dude? You went and like tracked down her boss? You didn't even know where she worked. So he had to do all this like sleuthing, or have someone sleuth for him, to find out where she worked.
Adrian said it right there. Money is a superpower.
Yep. That's what I said. Money is a lot. And so I think that goes back to reinforcing why she would be scared that he'd take her daughter away, even though the courts might agree that she should keep it. I mean, I would be scared if he had this money. He could find out in less than an hour where I live, and we haven't seen each other in 3 years, you know, and then of course, then he tracks down her job and, finds out everything. And then we do find out that her apartment's probably, her flat's not in the best area, but I do have one more thing that I want to, it was just a curiosity note that I want to say about, Bethany, do you want to say your notes?
I just think it like goes to show a little bit more like just their communication style. You can see in the dialogue, they're very like cold and stilted conversations. And I also think that it just shows how communication between anyone is different, especially when we have like this big macho power, money is no issue type of attitude, where he's like, well, of course you can work remotely, like come on, it's fine. And then like her, like also just being a woman and understanding a little bit more about the general overarching female brain. I know there's exceptions, but like everything's so connected. So she's probably thinking like, okay, the time zone's going to be different. How am I going to do this? Like I have to like still parent, and is Wi-Fi going to be a problem? Like all of these other issues that he has just no idea with. So, but the main takeaway that I got was just like, you can see how uncomfortable they are around each other. And it's just awkward. So I think we got that out on the page really well.
Yes. Yep. And the fact that they did get over that eventually, I think that was done well. So my one curiosity note here is, and this would probably just me trying to throw a wrench in here, probably because this is a very short read, the plot line, moves linearly pretty well. But the child, Paola, she is very sweet and smart and just generally a well-behaved child, which you can chalk up to good parenting. I used to think I was a great parent until I had my second kid. And I realized that when kids scream and yell, sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with the parent being a bad parent. My kid was autistic. He didn't know how to communicate. So I would wonder what type of story this would actually be, because Sergio fell in love with his daughter really quick because of how sweet she was. What kind of story would this be if the kid was not that sweet kid?
I will say, I think the choice of having his child be a daughter is very interesting. I can't wait to talk to Emma about it, because like it's almost like a redemption for him, because like he messed up. Well, so did she. They messed up their initial romance, and so it's like he's redeeming himself in Iris's eyes, but it's also like a do-over with like, this young precious girl, and he gets to be like the man in her life in the sweetest way possible, which is like being a dad. So I was like, I don't know if Emma went with it because of that or what, but I was just like, I kind of like the whole like redemption, not only for him, but like he also gets to be like the first love of, like a kid in a fatherly sense. I just thought that was really cute.
And I had it in my head too, because Emma only has boys. She's got 4 boys, I think. She doesn't have any daughters.
Gotcha. So maybe this is just writing a desire into
maybe.
She's tired of being outnumbered.
I do remember thinking when we got to meet his family, and he has all sisters, and he's got a big family. He's all sisters. I was like, oh, okay, so he would feel more comfortable probably with a little girl, anyways, versus like, with a boy, he might have been just more standoffish. And if he was more standoffish, like, here's what a man is supposed to be like, or whatever, if he was like that whole gruff, if he took on that role with a boy, then you wouldn't see that connection maybe as much with the child, which is what, Iris kind of let down her guard a lot because of how he interacted with the daughter. That was my thoughts anyways. Yeah. Okay. Next chapter. This is where I wrote, I had some other notes in here. Hold on. Maybe. I felt like in here that she was not really pushing back enough, that she was giving in too much. I just felt like there's too many times where she's like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go along with it. And of course the pinnacle was the whole wedding. But money. Yeah. So, okay. In the next chapter, we have, where they're in Spain and she wants to go back to England, or I'm trying to remember. Yeah. She wants to go back to England. And he's like, we've discussed all this. There's no need for you to be in London. You're even able to do your precious work from here. There's no problem. And she's like, well, what about my flat? And he was like, I'll pay for it. So he keeps throwing money at everything, saying basically he'll take care of everything.
But she was going to lose her flat anyway soon. Like, she was overdue on the payments.
And he was like, I don't, she was like, but I don't, she's trying to get her point across. She's still trying to get her point across. She said, I don't care about your money. I don't care about your rooms, your houses. I want my life back. So it's like, she wants to go back to her old life, which again, we don't know exactly why she would want to do that when it wasn't exactly as nice as what she has now. Other than the fact that she doesn't get to choose. And she feels like she's in that position. She cannot choose. If he says, hey, we're going here next, she feels like she has to go. She doesn't have a choice in that. And then he said, he says, Paula is my daughter. I want her here. If you choose to leave, that's up to you, but she's staying. And she says, that that's not going to happen. You're not being fair. And he says, sometimes life isn't fair. In case you hadn't noticed, it's not fair that I missed out on the first years of my child's life. And she's only just getting to know her father. She stays with me. And then of course he gets up and leaves the room. And that's where I wrote, what do you guys agree with? Whose side do you agree with on here?
I mean, neither side, but they're both right and wrong. Like he was wrong to have cut him out from his daughter's life for 2 years or whatever, 3 years at this point now. But he's wrong for being so forceful and for putting her in a situation, like you said, every single problem that, every legitimate excuse that she gives, he's like, well, we can just throw money at it and the problem will go away. You like, it just so happens that she doesn't have friends back home. But if she did, like, he doesn't consider that. Like, he knows where she lives. He knows this, that, and the other thing, but he doesn't necessarily know what her life is like back home. And so kind of snatch her away from him makes him a jerk about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, am I muted? No.
Oh.
Yeah. I think they are both forgetting that Paula is probably the one that's going to be most disrupted by this whole thing. Like Iris is like, I can see where she's coming from. Like, it's our life. We want to do this. And this is how it's been. And this is what she knows. And then he's like, yeah, I was never given an opportunity to be part of that. Like, I'm making up for lost time. Like, I see both ends of the spectrum for sure. So it's one of the, I don't think either of them were in the right for sure. But I think both of them were in the wrong because they were not considering how this would all affect Paula to just up and move. And so that's my thought. But I think it's a great way of like a very real conflict, and it was presented well in the book as well. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah. And this is the one where she goes back because it was for the that's where she found out that she got offered a promotion. And when she comes back to Spain, you kind of get the first look into what life was for like Sergio, because the daughter got chickenpox. I don't think you find that out until the next page, but or is it this page? Popped. Then again, a couple days. I'm trying to remember. I know when she got back there, he did not look great. Okay, she got chickenpox, was said on the next page. So the beginning of chapter 6. So we're heading to chapter 6 next, but that's good to know that we end the chapter with her coming back because she did go for a couple of days. Her daughter stayed behind with Sergio, and she got back, and she hadn't been able to get in contact with them for like over a day, I think it was, and then found out that her daughter had chickenpox. And she's getting better, but she saw all the lengths that Sergio went to take care of their daughter, even like he's sleeping on the floor in her room. So while this is happening, which I'm like, you have money, dude, why don't you have like a bed in there? So it's not like you can't afford to have like some type of like twin bed set up in there or something. I'm sure it's a huge room. You could probably even have a full bed or something. But yeah, sleeping on the floor, even like air mattress would work. So this is where we get the first inkling, because up to this point, we don't know. I don't know if we even really talked about it. So what happened was Iris, the way they met, Iris met Sergio. He was her boss. She had worked there for a couple months. They got closer and closer. They slept together one night. The next day she went to work. He wasn't there. And then he had canceled all his appointments. He was gone. And she heard women talking about how he did that every now and then. He'd cancel all his appointments and go spend the week with a woman somewhere. And then he'd get tired of her and come back to work again. So she takes it to mean that his disappearance is that he went straight from her bed to someone else's. And so then she left the job. She didn't go back the day after that day. And she found out she was pregnant a few weeks later. And then that was it. So we get an inkling. I mean, I wrote it down. I'm sure you guys probably did too, because I don't think it was like meant to be hidden. But, she goes with him to go meet his mom and his family. And she finds out that his dad passed away 3 years ago. which is the same time frame when all of this stuff happened when they first.
So even without that, like I assumed when I was reading this that Sergio took the day off, because if you get the two of them in the office together, it would have been obvious to everyone else that they just hooked up. And so I figured he was doing the responsible thing, which was kind of removing himself from the situation until they can at least get a chance to talk. And so I took it, I didn't honestly piece it together because I wasn't thinking about timelines, but my assumption was that he really cared about her and he wanted to continue. And so he removed himself from the equation to, give them a chance to figure it out. And then she just kind of quit the very next day.
You know what I thought it was? And I didn't think it was anything negative either. When they said that he would take time off and like go, take off time with a woman, I thought, oh, he took off all the time off with her. He's going to get with her. Like, hey, let's go. We're going to go on vacation or something, But because she left, he couldn't find her. And I was like, well, why didn't he find her though? He could have tracked her down, especially since we saw that early in the book that he could track her down easy. So I was like, there's something else here. So then when I saw the whole timeline thing, I was like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why he didn't track her down, after he got back and was settled back into his, business routine, he probably was just like, okay, it meant more to me than it did to her. All right. And he's respecting that.
Well, he also doesn't know there's a kid involved.
Yes, obviously there's that. Yeah. But I think to what Shanna was saying, he has all this money, he could track her down. It's like, well, okay, he might be a jerk in some ways, but he's not a stalker and chasing down his, one night stand hookup type thing. But yeah, that was also one of the things that was I was frustrated by Iris's reaction, but it made her other reactions in the book make more sense, where she just wants to run away. She ran away from Sergio when she saw him again. She wants to run away from Spain. She just is like, I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to remove myself. And that's a coping mechanism. That's one way people communicate. And so I'm like, okay, at least she's been consistent. And this is her MO. And yeah, so it was not surprising, but I was just like, one of those miscommunications that so avoidable, but it makes sense for this character. This is what I'm saying makes sense.
It's consistent. Like you said, I think that was really important. I think that what we learned about the characters almost from the very beginning, they stayed consistent through the book.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it just got more frustrating because we're like, we know this is your character, but you need to change and grow.
I know.
So
thanks, Adrian. Yeah, so I also have just a technical note. When he gives her a phone to use, my thought is, obviously this is a romance story, so it's not the case. But my thought is, wow, I would never trust an unlocked phone. It's easy to malware, low jacket, whatever. If this were a thriller, that is 100% how he is stalking her.
Trying to take Emma's book and make it to a thriller, babe.
And yeah, so there was also a comment about how, Paola is great, but that she's also a naturally shy child. And I'm not surprising, because it seems like Iris is kind of smothering her a little.
But you know what? Until she said that she was a naturally shy child, I did not get that from her. But then she was shy for the rest of the book.
Right.
So I was like, I didn't get that. I didn't get that vibe. She seemed very open to Sergio. So I was like, okay, maybe it was just a Sergio thing. Because we didn't see her around a lot of other people.
That's true. And I mean, my goddaughter just is just over 2. So close to that age. So I was very able to picture that in my head. And I was like, I get it. This girl is happy and fun in her own environment, but we go out and about, she's glued to your leg, scared of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I also just was yeah, I don't know. I wish we had gotten a little bit more description of Paola and some of her interactions and mannerisms, because the only reason I was able to picture her so well is because I had a 2-year-old in mind. Whereas before I was like, oh, I might have guessed closer to 3.5 or 4.
Yeah, I guessed her as being 3.
Of the
I wrote that down in the beginning of the book. I wrote down 3 years old, and then when she said she was 2, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
especially when she said that she was having a conversation with her daughter, and I was like, oh, I remember my first full conversation with my son, not my youngest, because he's he didn't start talking to, he was almost 6, or between 5 and 6. But my oldest son, he was 3 when we had a first full conversation, so that's why I had it in my head that she was 3. Yeah. But it makes sense because she couldn't be pregnant for 9 months and then
timelines would be a little more
skewed. So, right. Adrian says, what 2-year-old eats pasta with pesto? Neither of my boys did. But Actually, now that my boys like pasta to begin with. Now my oldest he eats macaroni and cheese now, but my youngest he still doesn't eat pasta. No pasta. No. We also end this chapter with, getting more into Iris's thoughts about her being attracted to Sergio still. Like we kind of get that a little bit throughout, but it kind of gets reinforced, I think, quite a bit in this chapter, which sets up for the next chapter where they do finally sleep together again. And they kind of work through some of their miscommunication issues with different things, not the main issue of what happened, why she walked away, from him years ago, and never told him about the pregnancy. But they do kind of work through some of this. I didn't have any notes. I do remember this chapter really well, but what did you guys think? I thought this was a good chapter.
Mm-hmm. So this is chapter 7 or chapter 6?
7.
Yeah. So I have a highlight here of a fun Britishism. It is, let me see.
Well, there was the one about the sticks and the one in the chapter before. I was like, sticks.
Yeah. Well, it has to do with the rabbit. So if
the rabbit,
with Sergio, the receiver, she managed to leave the car somewhat gracefully, if with a little of the air of the rabbit caught in the headlights. And so that, I feel like in the US that would have been a deer. So
yeah, it would have been a deer. Yeah.
And let's I was hit or miss on this chapter. The entire time I was just thinking, like, I know about Sergio's reputation, and she had a few doubts to which, but I'm like, based on what? Because the only thing that she knows about his reputation is what she overheard in a bathroom from 2 coworkers.
Yeah.
And so she is basing her entire life off of something overheard without any proof, and without even like asking the 2 people for confirmation or like any additional information. All she heard was that. And it's also got office gossip, which when I was saying before, like I compare myself to how I was when I was first entering the workforce, because that's I assume that's how young she is, even though she seems like she's 28 at times. But it's like I didn't really trust anything that people told me, because I already kind of knew, like, oh well, these people just love to talk, and most of what they say is empty air. So
yeah. And I think that when we hear things like that, when we hear gossip or whatever, then we kind of look out to see if we see any signs from that person. So I was looking for signs from Sergio. So every time she thought she saw something, a sign that he was, he was a womanizer or whatever, was really into, they ended up being wrong. And at some point I wanted something to be right, not so much in something that would hurt her, but I wanted it to be right so that the gossip wasn't just there to be put in the book as a plot device.
Yeah.
Like, so even if he had a history of like he admitted to it, or like someone, like his sisters had said, oh yeah, he used to bring this one girl home, or he brought a new girl home every month or something, something like that, then it would be like, oh, okay, so there was a reason why he had this reputation at some point, but he's different now.
Right. Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah. This chapter for me was like kind of hit and miss in the sense of like, okay, we needed some progression in the romance department. So like that made sense. I understood that. It like flowed really well, but it was also like you guys had so many breakthroughs with your communication, except for the one that mattered. And I was like shaking Sergio in my head, like, how could you not want to know what the thought process was behind her like leaving? Did she know before, after? And like I read this book like a month and a half ago, so I might be forgetting if some of that was addressed, but it was just like it felt very like, for as like blunt and to the point and demanding as Sergio could be, it was like, why are you not demanding these answers? Well, why are you holding back?
I felt like and he said at the end how he thought it was his fault, but I would think based off of his thought process and what I got from him, it didn't make sense to me why he didn't ask, because it would be clear to me like, okay, I slept with her and then I disappeared the next day. Even though my father died, I disappeared on her and I never got in contact with her. So yeah, she's going to be mad at me. And of course she's going to hide the baby because she thinks I disappeared on her after sleeping with her or something. I don't know. I kind of I didn't have as much issue with that one. I do feel what you said though, like, they made some progress, but they didn't make enough of a breakthrough. And I felt like, yeah, they couldn't talk about the main issue. I think just for the plot, just for the romance drama, they couldn't make a breakthrough on that.
Yeah. But
they did end the chapter kind of stepping back again. So I'm trying to remember what it was, but I do remember like they were making progress and now they were stepping back again.
I think Paula probably came up to something, or usually, yeah.
Interrupted by Paula.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm going to click on some of these comments here because we're getting quite a few. Bethany just made it all make sense. They had instant connection, which is not the norm. So yeah, I can buy that she was shy. We just saw her comfortable with Sergio right away and assumed that was her norm. Yeah. And I do remember thinking that, we only saw her with Sergio, and then she was, described as a shy child and then was shy. And I thought, we only saw her with Sergio. So of course, without having seen her with others, that could have been an outlier. And he said, yeah, what 2-year-old eats pasta with pesto? Seriously, pasta with pesto is toddler staple. I don't know where, I guess in the UK. But sometimes you got to bang one out to get. Oh, okay. I'm not going to say that online. Okay.
Hey, Adrian swears on this channel, and you're on Adrian's channel, so it's perfectly fine.
Yes, well, no, I matched the book. 4 kids ate it all like 6 from like 6 months. Oh, that's cool. And tenterhooks. Well, I've heard of tenterhooks before. A tiny rented flat. But, I did get the idea that it was a small flat. But then she talked about having stairs. And I had a hard time picturing that. And I think it's just because I've not been in places in London to know what that would look like.
I assumed it was just like stairs up to the apartment. So it's just like a generic apartment complex.
No, she had 2 levels to her flat. Because she was downstairs. That's what I got from it. That she went downstairs. Something was downstairs and she was looking around and she went back upstairs and then she went back down. She was looking for her daughter when her daughter first disappeared. That second chapter, I think it was the 3rd chapter. I could be wrong. I don't remember.
No, whenever she was going downstairs, I assumed it was just kind of like a lobby area or like the where the mailroom is or something.
Like on the edge of tenter. I couldn't think of how to call that. Okay. Ben says you have to go here in a little bit. So I didn't do my word of the day rotation. Okay. All right. And we're almost done with the book. So so it leaves off with them stepping back, and then chapter 8. This is the one. This is like where everything happens, I think, basically.
Yeah.
So in chapter 8, he goes, Sergio takes them to his mom's. Well, it happened already. He went there and met the mom, and then met all the sisters and nieces and nephews. And then he proposes to her, and she says she needs time to think. And then he announces that they're getting married, and he announces the date. And then he basically, and she's like, she doesn't know what to think. She's like blindsided by all of this. Like, I didn't even say yes yet. And now we already have a date. And it was like, the date wasn't too far away. What, like a week maybe or something? I don't remember how long it was. It was very, very short time. And then I didn't write any notes. I think by this point I was just kind of reading through really quickly. I was like, okay, what? It kept getting more. I think this is the moment when he announced that they were getting married and he had an actual date. It was the first time I actually didn't like him for the first time. And I was like, what? And I was not. And then, what are your guys' thoughts?
I felt the same way. I think everything up until that point, he was just being a jerk or, a little bit stalkery or a little bit creepy, where he found out where she lived and all talked to her boss and all that. But when he says that when he said that she accepted his proposal, that was absolutely crossing the line. Like, there is no gray area there. That is 100% in the wrong. And I know he's trying to do it for his family to make his mom happy, but like, what's she going to do as soon as she finds out that, hey, there's no wedding? In fact, going through everything they do to prepare for it actually feels worse to have it yanked out from under them.
I genuinely believe the wedding was going to happen when we got there, because up to this point in the book, every time Sergio says we're doing this, she could do a little pushback, but in the end, she gave in and she did it. She went to Spain. She did all this stuff. She put her foot down once about going to Paris for 3 days. And that was it. But I thought, well, that's just something very little. This is not the wedding. This is not like going to Spain after, leaving from London. This is not like a 3-day little trip. This is getting married. But so was leaving. I felt it was a big thing. Everything else that she gave in were big things, I felt like. And so I just thought, yep, this is going to happen. Wow. And this is the point too, where I was like, this is a romance, right? It's going to have a happily ever after. How are we going to get there?
I was there with you. I was like, she's going to cave. Like, she's going to look at her daughter. She's going to look at like his family and not want to let them down. And she's going to cave. That, or like totally, completely run away, which,
I did think maybe for a minute she might just like completely leave and run away. And when she was putting all the stuff together and her daughter was like, well, I'm going to go see daddy, or whatever it was that she said. And then she caved. And I was like, okay, that's what I expected. She caved. She caves all this time, so she's gonna get married to him. I thought, yep, it's gonna happen. All right, that was chapter 8. Chapter 9.
I was going to say this is
yeah.
one of my favorite moments of Iris, where after she realized what's going on, the line is, at last stepping away from the sink, she counted to 3 to compose herself, resolving not to hit him over the head with a dirty frying pan, no matter how satisfying it would be. And I laughed at that moment.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too. Chapter 9 is really short. It was like 3 pages long. So they're at the church. I don't even remember. I didn't put any notes here. Got the veil, the father, the priest. Oh, yes. Very short chapter. Reason why, because they're at the wedding and they're getting ready to get married, and Sergio is the one who says, "I can't do it," and he walks out. And that was a twister for me. That was a twister. I was like, no, he didn't just do that. That should have been her, not him. But I liked it. It was a good twist to me. What did you guys think?
I felt very out of character. And so then I was like wondering, okay, is there something that I'm missing like culturally with his family and like his Spanish background that like I'm just not aware of? And then kind of seeing how important it was to his family and whatnot. And then how he has just been painfully logical / just like financially fixing problems, because he sees a problem, fixes it. What's the easiest way to fix something? With money. He happens to have a lot of that. And so then it was almost like he was fixing a problem, probably some like interest and true like desire there. And so then having that like flip, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So yeah, I was surprised by it.
Yeah, it caught me off guard too. At that point, I basically just kind of assumed that he did have strong feelings for her, because that's the only thing I could think of. Like, if he sees in her face and her eyes that it's not reciprocated, that would be why he wants to call it off. But yeah, I completely agree. Short chapter.
I thought it was either that, or that he was only marrying her because of his family, and he just decided that he wanted his own happiness. Sure. So, but because it was a romance story, I didn't lean toward that one. It can't be
that one.
Yeah, I didn't lean toward that one. I was like, it can't be that one. It's got to be what you just said, Ben, where he realized that she was going to be so unhappy, and he just couldn't do it, that even though he was trying to make his family. I did get the understanding when he's the one that turned around and walked out, I knew right away it was because the whole reason why, and there was a hint in the previous chapter that he was doing everything because of the family. It was a look or something he did. I should have marked it. But I remember reading that line. I thought, okay, he's pushing this hard because of his family, not because he wants to hurry up and get married to her. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is a romance novel, so he probably does want to marry her, but maybe it's because of the family that he's pushing it up. But I still thought he was wrong for making it happen or trying to make it happen. So, all right. And then in the last chapter, they had both went their own separate ways. She goes back to England. She's thinking about what she missed out on. She's missing him. And he finds her, tracks her down, proposes for real, tells her why he did walk out on her and that he really does want to marry her. And she says yes. What do you guys think?
I mean, I didn't really expect it to go any other way. And I was really relieved when they didn't have that like wedding in Spain and whatnot, because I was like, are they gonna get married, go on their honeymoon, and realize like it was meant to be? And then I was gonna be bummed about it. So I was happy they came to that conclusion on their own. We got our happily ever after. We finally got the clarity we needed. But yeah, like I think it summed it up nicely, and it was kind of what I was expecting. But I also think that's part of the genre. You don't get a happily ever after, you don't have a romance.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. We have to have nominations for the next book. Don't forget about that, guys.
Yep, I got mine.
Okay.
Yeah. It was everything I really kind of wanted from the story. So once they recognized the core misunderstanding at the heart of their relationship, it was very easy to realize like, oh, now I can recontextualize everything. And the way I was seeing him, the way he was seeing me were not aligned. So now that they are, we can just move forward. So we kind of skipped over it, but there was a moment where Sergio, like, where she's looking out and she sees Sergio with a younger woman in his house, and she's handing him a dress or something, and there's like a ball that's coming up, and so she assumes that he's going to go with this younger woman based on her assumptions about him, and it turns out no, that's wrong. She was bringing over a dress that he wanted to go with her. And like, you know, everything sort of makes sense at that point where he's not actually a womanizer, at least at this point in his life. And, you know, everything kind of just worked out for happily ever after. So it all worked for me.
I do like how it ended. I would have liked an extended chapter or 2 chapters out of it. I felt like it just went too quick from him. You know, she almost kind of went dead inside because she was like, I'm doing this. I'm marrying him. I don't have a choice. And then he walks out on her. And then that was humiliating just by itself. She felt humiliated by that. And then in the next chapter, she's realizing what she missed out on and she's ready to marry him. I wanted a little bit more in there, but I don't know. I don't know what was missing for me. I don't know if it should have been extended or there should have been. I mean, Emma's really good at adding in that interiority. So we got a lot of that, but it just felt like to me the interiority changed quickly from her being dead inside and being humiliated to, oh, I'm missing him and I missed out on something. I wanted something more in there, but I don't know what that would be.
Would you have liked an epilogue on a beach where they're just sipping, you know, pina coladas or something with Paolo running by and it's their honeymoon?
You mean just to be added onto what's here?
Yeah.
No. I think there needs to be something between the last 2 chapters or something more added to between the moment that she is left to the moment that he shows up on her doorstep. I needed something more in there, but I don't know what that would be. I don't know if it would be just more interiority, but she had plenty there. It just felt like too big of a leap. So I don't know. I don't know what I would be, what would work for that. So, all right. We have finished up the book. I would say overall, I enjoyed the book. It was a really good read. I would read another one from Emma.
Oh yeah, same. So yeah, it was my first foray into Emma Bennett's backlist, and I know I will enjoy plenty more of her books.
Oh yeah.
All right. So nominees for next week. Which ones do you guys have?
I can go first. I don't have
next Tuber book club. Sorry.
I don't have the actual copy with me because we just moved, so it's in a box. But it is number 47 by Hannah R. Palmer. I think I nominated it last time. I think it's time we get like a creepy thriller-ish thing in here. So number 47.
Yeah, I'm also going for the same thing I went with last time. This is Unholy by K.S. Garner. It is an urban fantasy story. It takes place in Baltimore, Maryland. So we're going back across the pond and yeah, so fighting demons, magic powers, a whole bunch of fun stuff. Okay, so creepy and fantasy. And then I'll just go the fantasy route. Danu's Curse. Nicole she's actually in the chat, or she was in the chat earlier. So Nicole. As Pierman. I don't know what I was trying to say for her last name, but in the chat it's she's Nicole Bookish Nicole. What is it? Nicole's Bookish Nook. So yeah. So Danu's Curse, which is based off of Irish mythologies. Danu is the name of their main goddess, and that's actually the Tuatha De Danann, which is the gods and goddesses as we think of them as gods and goddesses. Tuatha De Danann mean the people of Danu. So yeah. So I've been wanting to read. I have not read this book. I've been wanting to read it for a long time.
And then Adrian's nomination is The Dryad's Crown by David Hopkins.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is. Who is David?
He brought him on for one of his shows.
Yeah. Yes,
I don't. He's in the AuthorTube community. Or I know we said we weren't going to do all AuthorTube stuff anymore.
I think we're expanding it slightly.
I like doing the AuthorTube community.
Me too.
It's like whose lines it anyways? The rules are all made up.
Yeah.
Hey, OG Laura. Oh, that's Emma.
Oh, there we go. Nicole's there.
There she is. She's still here. So.
Oh no, he does have an AuthorTube channel.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'm sticking to the rules. I guess I just don't know much about him. I'll have to go check him out. Alrighty. I cannot remember how they wrap this up. So I will let you guys novel sequel with Their Wedding is Coming. Really? Oh, novella sequel, so not novel. That should be interesting. Is he going to force her into anything else, like having like pie instead of cake during the wedding? I don't know. Speaking of expanding, what about expanding cracks?
Thank you, Richard. That's my second book, hanging out behind me.
Yep. All right. Well, I'll have you guys do your outros. Bondage on the honeymoon? I don't think so. Really? All right, Ben, you want to go ahead and do your outro?
Sure. Let's see. Ben Pick, Rain to Write YouTube channel. I also write books. There is no spice in there. There's definitely no bondage. So I'm sorry to disappoint. Books by Adrian. That's like, oh yeah, this past week I did a little. My video was all about the Netflix One Piece adaptation and how to write great adaptations. So if you're interested in doing reboots, remakes, or retellings, or you have any inkling to try out a high seas pirate adventure on Netflix, check out One Piece or my video.
You can see that. All right, Bethany.
Yes, hi, my name is Bethany Vota. I write short stories which get compiled into different collections and thrillers. I've got lots of fun stuff down the pipeline, and you can find me on YouTube, hopping around on different streams. I have an announcement about why I've taken a break from YouTube, but it does have to do with someone stealing pictures of me and doing terrible things with them. So I just want to put it out there. Like, I was all into YouTube for a while, still am, but I've mostly just been hanging out with my friends on YouTube. So you can find me all over the place. And yeah, thanks for hosting. And I am so excited to see what the next book is going to be.
Yes, I am excited to see what it will be too. We will actually be back in 2 weeks where we will get a chance to talk to Emma Bennet herself, the author. And she'll be able to answer any questions that we may have or that you may have if you've had a chance to read her book or if you've listened to us and you're wondering about anything that you heard today. And then during that, at the end of that live is when we'll find out which is the next book that we're reading. So that's going to be exciting. And yeah, so thank you everyone for coming. This is Adrian's channel. I am SD Houston. That's my pen name. My name is Shannon. I have a YouTube channel under the name of SD Houston where I run a ton of writing sprints and I have videos that come out every now and then. I'm also part of the AuthorTube Writing Conference team and part of the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast, which you can also find those things on my channel as well. And I think that will do it. I feel like I'm missing something. No?
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay. All right. So then I will do the outro and we'll see you guys all later. Bye.